had a virtual Zoom meeting, and it was great. And I thought, what's helped me and my organization through these times were networking and connecting with other business owners. And you were on live, and someone jumped in with an HR, and she provided a letter, and we used that as a company. So right away, the value you provided was incredible. So I just want to thank you, and I appreciate you spending time, because this is a very busy time for you and a lot of people with different ways we're doing business. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's kind of what the Chamber of Commerce was built for. Thankfully, we don't get this happen too often, and we go along providing our support mechanisms for business and for individuals in the community, and a community support mechanism as well for the economy. But it's at times like this when our channels of connections with the powers to be are very influential, because most of the individual work that we do on a daily basis is really thought of from a government level anyway to be accurate and not as emotional. It's more data driven. So this is really what we're built for. So yes, my days are 16 to 18 hours, but that's okay. I'm just like a real estate broker now.
There you go. Yeah, I think I've worked more now than I have in the last couple of months. It's just incredible, and the amount of hours and calls, and I think before we dive into it, let's go back a bit here, and I just want to start off by thanking. We talk a lot about the front line, and everyone has. So I'll drop some names as gas stations, to you've mentioned truck drivers, to we obviously know the most important, I believe, we would say doctors and nurses, but really the staff and at every hospital, any healthcare right now, the cleaners at the hospital, they're so important. So the stress level. So anyway, I want to thank the front line, everyone from a gas station, truck driver to the hospitals, doctors and nurses. I mean, we can't thank them enough. So I don't know if you want to add anyone else. So.
Well, it's everybody in the end. I'm glad you brought this up, because it's, you see it online a lot. It's everybody that's in the essential workforce. And, there's probably going to be individuals here listening in, but I see it all the time online at people, talking about this business or that business, and it's not right. They shouldn't be working. They're not an essential service. And I think it's really important to clearly understand, and you mentioned it, really wisely, the janitorial staff or the cleaning staff at the hospital, or for that matter, the janitorial cleaning staff at any other manufacturing facility that's producing all of the products that we need desperately right now. These people are as important and as fundamental as you can get. And we had this conversation at home last week, and it was okay. So what is an essential workplace? And so you start thinking about what is an essential workplace, and it just keeps going on and on and on. Because if you think of a manufacturer or a business that is manufacturing something that may be in your mind way down the chain of value, the end product can't reach where it needs to reach without those services. So there's a company in town here who manufactures dyes for the plastic bottle industry. Most people would probably say, why are they going to work? Why? Because they manufacture dyes for sanitization bottles. So if they aren't working today, the company that bottles hand sanitizer can't make bottles. So the sanitizer doesn't leave the factory. So, you have to really understand when you see a business, start thinking up or down the line, because I can tell you there is a ton of thought going into Premier Ford's mind and his circle at saying what is actually essential and what isn't. That's not to say that there are some businesses that maybe provide essential products or services, but they're provided by a lot of others, and they could probably close down. However, You really, before you start typing on social media and criticizing a business, you need to really clearly understand that for the most part, over 50% of businesses that exist are providing in some capacity essential needs for us that we use every single day. So, if you see people driving around that are going to work, they're going to work because we need them to go to work.
Great input. And then I'll jump in there. As you're talking, I'm thinking how down the line, I mean, think of a mechanic, nurses and doctors are heading into work. And if something goes wrong with the car, they will need that mechanic or CAA. So that's a great point. And I think, I did hear one comment that they should have just listed, the essential businesses that weren't required. Well, no, there is that many for that reason. So it's down the line. So good point. Good, the mechanic.
And what happens if Cambridge Memorial has a plumbing problem or electrical problem?
There you go.
If they have a plumbing problem, in all probability, they're going to have a construction problem too, because they're going to have water all over the place. They're going to need a construction crew to come in there and fix it. So, it's not as simple as saying, if you don't provide medical services, you should be staying home, because that is not the true definition of an essential service.
Good point. Now I'll go on the opposite side. We shut down. Well, we closed doors, but we've been open and provide essential business. But I think 3 weeks ago, we basically got up and went completely virtual, the entire company. And I got to hand it to the operations. Everyone in the organization did an incredible job, did not miss a beat. And we're 100% virtual and everyone's working from home. But I do got to say, I've talked to so many colleagues, friends, and even your Zoom was at home, the first one. And I know a lot of people that are working from home and they've all stepped up and they're at home. So I do think this community, I've talked to a lot of colleagues in the US and across Ontario, and a lot of them respected that. And they technically are following protocol. So I got to say that I don't know if there's that many. I'm not out there that often. So I do think everyone I've talked to, they're at home. So.
Yeah, I had to do the first one at home because we had a internet problem here at the office. But, basically the chamber office is closed. Our doors are locked. We, however, do have one individual that comes in. She's not in today. And so I'm manning the operation today. But we do a thing called certificates of origin. And certificates of origin are required for anybody that is shipping internationally any product or goods that are manufactured and they originate here in Canada. And that product cannot cross any international boundaries without the stamp or signature of the Chamber of Commerce on it. So we have a ton of manufacturers in this community who are essential services, some of them in the medical field, who are exporting product, and most of it's drug related. So they need to have those signatures. And if they don't get those signatures from us, there is no one else that can provide it for them. So we are here just doing certificates of origin, but it gives me the opportunity to have a little bit better internet than I get at home. So.
Great. Well, speaking of someone, we have actually one individual at our office as well with all the doors locked. But, I thought about this when this all happened and we took it very serious and we were waiting for the list to come out. But we've also learned a few things. And as much as we all want to work, but we understand it's an essential business, meaning there's going to be the odd buyer and seller that purchased a property 2 months ago. We're respecting the protocol and followed every rule. And there's the odd seller. We're informing them, take your time. We're not going on the market. We're not suggesting you go on. There's no real need for you. So let's hold off for sure. But there's deposit checks still need to be dropped off for that house that was sold 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and they have to close this week and whatnot. They need to move in. They've moved out or they're in a rental and things have to move on that way. And there's buyers that have sold a couple months ago and they were waiting for the prime time to list and they're on the market and they need to sell. So they respect all the new rules. We've limited anyone going through and we've done some virtual stuff. We're trying and I had a few meetings the last couple of weeks. We meet every other day as an entire team at least we're getting 100% attendance for that now. There's no excuse. But it's also okay to say we don't know. Like we had the first couple meetings, we don't know. It's okay, everyone, to step up and just say, I don't know. I wasn't sitting around saying, I've gone through this, here's what we're going to do. We threw the innovation cap on and we threw the reality cap and managed that. Anyway, so I agree. We have to have one person at the office.
Well, we should talk a little bit about that, Cliff. I think to some degree. First of all, let's get this straight. It's incumbent upon all of us to help flatten this curve. So, and I look at examples that are, we've been to the grocery store, a couple of times in the last few weeks. I think the grocery stores, really the management there are really stepping up to the plate and making sure that people feel safe and comfortable. It's mandatory now to take a buggy. I went into the grocery store the other day, just had to pick up a couple of things, and I said to the young girl there who was wiping down the carts, "No, I don't need the buggy." She says, "No, you have to because everyone has to," and that's a part of the physical distancing protocol that they put in. And they're really fantastic. Some of them have lineups, before you can go through the cash register. I think there are exceptions, not necessarily in the grocery store business, but there are exceptions in some places that I have seen. However, this is really, really simple. Stay away from other people. Just stay back, and that doesn't mean you can't see them and wave to them and even have a conversation with them, but just try and respect that 6-foot distance if you possibly can, whether or not you are ill or whether or not the other individual is ill. Stay back. This is how we're going to flatten the curve, because let me tell you what has to happen. What can't happen is what's going on right now. We can't flatline our economy for very long. Let me tell you, there is not a segment of society, none, not the social service, not the not-for-profit, the charity, or government for that matter, that doesn't depend on a successful and vibrant economy. So we can't let this happen very long. And I think I talked to somebody the other day, they said, this is unprecedented. I said, unprecedented? It's not only unprecedented, it could never have been planned for in this manner. Every country in the world, every municipality, every lot of big companies did pandemic planning. I don't think any one of them had it in their plan of what actually happens during a pandemic. This is, I don't think unprecedented is the exact right word. So what we have to understand is that, if we don't figure out a way to do business the way this world is right now, we're going to be challenged coming out of this. There is no question about it. Right now, here's what the experts say. This was an expert, and I've never heard this before in my life. Usually experts come out and say, well, we're going to experience 20% or 30%, or they're really, really close within 1 or 2 points. You know what experts are saying right now about unemployment in Canada? It's going to be somewhere between 10 and 42%. That is the largest margin of speculation I've ever heard out of a professional, to say somewhere between 10 and 42%. This is why it's so critically important that we start planning now and getting our thinking moving in the next direction. So, it's going to be, for the foreseeable future, it's going to be just like this. This virus is going to be around till there's a vaccine. I don't know how long. I don't know whether they think, well, once we get the flatten the curve, that we can all go back to doing what we were doing. I don't think we can until such time as there's a treatment or that there's a vaccine for this. So the reality of it is if we're all sitting out there in our homes and our home offices, and we're doing the remote thing, and we're keeping our distance from everybody, we're doing our thing, how long do you think we could keep doing that? And that's going to be the challenge. And how do we do what we did before in a manner that protects us? And each and every one of us, that means your employees, your customers, your individual person, your family. How do we figure this out now and start moving forward? Because I think if we don't, that's what's going to be the dramatic change in the future. Right now, they're talking about, and I heard a lot of people say, "Oh, can you imagine once this is all over, there's going to be all this pent up demand, and it's going to be like a V." So they talk about it like a V, where you go into it very steeply. It gets down to that turning point. Somebody flicks a switch and you start surging straight up. The experts are now saying, in all probability, it's not. It's going to be more like a U. So we're going to get down into this bottom portion, and we're going to be flatlined there a little bit. And we're going to be flatlined largely because it's going to take a whole ton of effort from entrepreneurs and businesses around the country to start to mobilize their workforce again. It's not going to be that if you have a company where maybe 40, 50, 60 people were laid off as a result of this, that instantly when all the restrictions come off and we've got maybe protection protocol in place, that the very next morning everything's going to be back to normal, because it's not. Because it just can't possibly be, because right now orders aren't coming in to the manufacturers like they were before. So this period of growth to get back into that is probably going to take a little bit of time. And it's not only going to take a little bit of time because of that, it's going to take a little bit of time because of you and me. How comfortable are we going to be to be moving around? In spite of the protocols that might be in place, we are still going to restrict our movement, whether there's an order or whether there's not an order.
Agreed.
That's just going to be human nature. And so I think as individuals, we have to start planning and thinking about, what does that new world that we all have to play a part in our building our economy, what does that look like, and how do I get back to where I was as quickly as possible? And what protocols are we going to have to put into place to make sure that happens? So I think there's a lot of sectors that are I guess we could look at our own region, Waterloo, and say, aren't we thankful we're in the tech capital of probably North America right now, where we've got a lot of the geniuses up in Waterloo that are thinking about new ways where we can do business and make it effective. But sadly, I have talked to so many small businesses in the last 2 weeks, hundreds of them, who aren't online. They maybe have a website, but they've never thought about doing e-commerce. They always felt that it was too important to have the people come into their establishment. And at this point, they basically shut the doors and walked away and are hunkered down at home. I think what we need to do is encourage and mobilize those individuals to say, look, now is the time, because, we're all going to change our habits. We're going to, there's going to be, if this goes on for much longer than another month, we're going to change our own habits. We're going to become accustomed to this. This is going to be normal. I'm going to be quite satisfied to stand in line and stay 10 feet away from the person in front of me before I go to the cash register. I'm going to be very comfortable, maybe to wear rubber gloves, maybe a mask, and that's going to all change. So, and I'm probably going to give second thoughts to walking into maybe a dollar store where they're constricted aisles, people are close. I'm probably going to give those some second thoughts. So our mindset is going to change, and in your industry especially, that's where you're going to have to start figuring out, how can you be as aggressive and as outstanding as you have been in the past at both providing exceptional experiences to your vendors and great service to the customers that come in that want to buy a house. So I think we've got a tiny little bit of time. We're
Yeah.
all kind of reeling back and sitting back and saying, is this, do I feel comfortable? Am I protecting my family? But what we need to start doing right now is we need to start thinking, what's the come up? Where are we going to be? How are we going to be? And what are we going to do to move faster once we get out of this? Because if that does have a flattening at the bottom, if it is a U shape, that surge is going to come, and it's going to come big after that flat period. You want to be with the group that's going up the chain. You don't want to be with the group that's stuck in the bottom.
And that's staying, keeping their heads in the sand. Listen, It's not easy. It's difficult, right? So I think how we do it and how we come together, channels like this, and I'll go back to some of your comments. There is a wide range with expert numbers. They talked about even the deaths from 5,000 to 15,000. That's not, 1% on, like, that's a massive number. So, and you mentioned the word, I don't know, a few times in your sentence. And I think if we can all step up and say, well, they weren't prepared. You talked about pandemic protocols. No one was prepared for it. So we have to be patient as human beings that they weren't expecting that. Grocery stores weren't ready to have security guards outside. My wife as well, she had to wait in line. So I think we just have to be patient and say they weren't ready for this. And I think everyone's doing their best to adapt to the situation. And I'll go to this even comment. You said the Waterloo region. We are fortunate to be in this region, known as the tech capital of North America, maybe, or Canada. And even Prime Minister dropped Dave Caputo. I don't know if you heard that. The Prime Minister dropped Dave Caputo's company. I think they're called Trust. Had it up there earlier, but it was just great to have the Prime Minister, talk about Trust Corps and Dave Caputo in town that had donated quite a bit of recycled, I think block or just some panels in the hospitals, and he donated to the hospital Kitchener and I believe Guelph. So that's the innovation that we have in this region, and I agree with you that I think it's a U. I don't know about the V. I don't think any expert can comment. I think the more we do have the dialogues, we'll be prepared for it. And I think, being innovative for sure and talking about what's important and what it looks like coming out of this and the rules, because I think it'll be a slow, gradual back into the workforce and respecting the physical distancing. I think we'll definitely stay on board. And there'll be people uncertain and not attending. Maybe a restaurant might not get as busy or buffets right off the get-go. But I do think we should talk about some of that. And that's why I think you've done a great job on. It's a very sad situation. This virus is, I don't know much, but it's obviously a very dangerous one. And we have to, be grateful that any of our family members, anyone, we don't get hit with it. But it's some of our colleagues and friends have been affected. And my prayers go out to that family because it's evil and it's quick. And I think we don't know what to do when it comes to that. But coming out of this, I think it could be very damaging that if we're not prepared for tomorrow and having some guidelines and adapting to online, and I'll go to my business. We've talked about it, from sellers, and we'll get to some questions. I think there's some questions, but we talked about, this virtual reality, and we're failing. It's okay. The more I fail, the more successful we become, and we have to fail. My company knows we fail more than we have wins, and that's how we've come successful. We had a virtual open house that we limited anyone coming through, so we thought, let's keep the exposure going for the seller. They need to sell. Let's limit as many showings as we can. So let's do a virtual tour, so anyone can have their walkthrough at any time they want at their fingertips. And it wasn't the greatest one, and we're going to improve on that. But I do think going forward, if we can add a component, and people always say tech's going to replace the human interaction. Absolutely not. I think what tech's going to do, and we're fortunate to be in this region, it's going to enhance. If you leverage tech, it's going to enhance the process. For example, we have all the virtual tours. We're going to become probably a master at this in the next month or so. But if you want to view that property, Greg, you're going to be hesitating. So you're going to walk through one time, and then the next 4 showings, we can do it this way. We'll do the virtual walkthrough the next 3 or 4 times versus, an open house every Sunday, 2 to 4, and having 30 people. We'll have, you having access to that link and walking through any time. So I think that's where we need to adapt with tech and provide that value to buyers and have another channel that they can walk through. And I think every sector we can talk about. So in that U shape too, I'll get back to, because that's what I do. I'm all over the map. You know how that works, right, Greg? But you talked about something that's important that the experts don't know how long this is going to be. The only, I don't know if it's a positive, but we're all in it together. We've heard that and seen that. Every sector's been affected almost. I've never gone through anything like this. And there are some online, like we know Amazon, they're hiring. And I do think afterwards they might be affected. And Rego Realty is starting something in the next couple of weeks that we'll want our audience to stay tuned. And we want to come off very important coming out of this. We want to be relevant for our local businesses and help them. And I think you're all about that. And I think we'll talk, maybe have one of these in 2 weeks from now or a week when we're ready. But we want to provide value and interaction with our local businesses and we'll come out of this. So maybe Amazon is not where we should all, we said it 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, company meeting. We will no longer do closing baskets or we'll try to limit any paper buying or any magazines out of town. If we're going to order a sign, if we're going to order any type of print, we're going to want local businesses.
Yep.
We're going to limit and minimize as much as we can with Amazon for the next year. We're going to buy gift certificates to every single local business that was affected, that was shut down, spas, gyms, restaurants. So we're going to continue that when we come out of this. We're going to have every agent send in and every team member send in their top 5 or 10 businesses that their local friend or a colleague had to unwind, and we're going to buy gift certificates in those local businesses. So I think that's what we need to start talking about, and you've been kind of starting that conversation. So thanks for starting that dialogue, because we go back to, it's a very sensitive moment with the virus and people are being affected, and we need to start talking about coming out of this for sure, and but still respect. And I have to say it. Everyone's respecting it. I think I haven't had one colleague of mine, one friend that conversations right across North America that has said, you know what, forget it, I'm out there. So I do think everyone's, stepping up and doing their part to flatten the curve. So of course everyone's going to say, should have done earlier that. I mean, they've never gone through this. No one has. So I think you touched up on some good points that, again, the wide range of experts, you talk about 10 to 42%. That's no joke. That gap is too massive to throw that out there. So and be precise. So that's scary times.
Well, if we ever experience this again, we'll have a ton of it.
We'll be pros.
And that's really, maybe the silver lining on the cloud is that, I do a lot of work, as you know, with generational gaps and all of that kind of stuff, from Gen Z all the way through to boomers, and the differences between each cohort. And I have a lot of worry about the Generation Z that's coming into the workplace right now. They're the ones that are kind of graduating from university and starting, because what kind of a world are they going to have? Let me tell you, each and every one of them is going to bear the brunt of the costs of this. They're the ones that are going to be paying this off. But let me tell you another thing, that they will have the tools at their disposal to be able to deal with these types of incidents going forward. So
there's the positive.
While their short-term view on this and our short-term view on it might be, wow, gee, I feel sorry for those poor kids. They're going to be able to build a world that's more resilient than it. It's going to, they've got lessons learned from wars, from shortages, from all kinds of things that have inflicted its pain on society. And now, probably the worst, the pandemic that we'd heard for years was going to come. And I think we just became complacent to some degree. In fact, I know, talking to big companies who had pandemic planning, they kind of put it on the shelf, and it was regurgitated every once in a while, but everybody would look at it and say, yeah, that still is in play. I think right now we will start building pandemic plans around our own household, not just around our business, and and we'll figure this out. And that next generation coming behind us is going to be much keener, much smarter, and way savvier when it comes to problems like this. And they'll get all the lessons learned, and they'll build an exciting future for them. So you know what? As a result of this, I'm a lot less worried about them because they're going through as kids, watching their parents and their employer go through circumstances that no one ever thought they were ever going to see, and that's just going to make them stronger.
Again, like that's an incredible note and comment. I never even thought of that. In the next generation, we did talk about they won't be able to afford properties or homes. Well, they're prepared for something we were not prepared for. So if we see anything coming down the pipeline, they're going to have a head start. But reality is, maybe it's okay not to buy property. We might have been in that era and generation that we stressed over our own mortgage and we needed a property. Well, maybe the upcoming generation, they might not want that stress level, and they're renting and building wealth with buying real estate. Not everyone has to buy a principal residence to build wealth. You can rent and you can buy an investment property. So they might not have the stress level that they are, saving all this and they can't buy, and there's always a positive. So I love how you turn that around, that they're going to be prepared. And same with the housing. If they don't buy, it's all right. They can still invest in real estate and build wealth.
Yeah, I think we know.
Good angle.
I think we know, Cliff, undoubtedly we're coming out of this. At some point, even if we limp out of it because we're waiting for the vaccine, once the vaccine comes out, once they found a solution to this disease, not unlike they did with HIV, AIDS, and others, we're gonna find our way out of that. How long is it going to take? Who really knows? Is it going to take 12 to 18 months? That is highly possible. I think advancements are going to be coming down to maybe treat it a little bit better before the vaccine comes out. But here's where the problem is. Right now we're in the defensive mode.
Yeah.
So those of you who play sports, defense is probably the one aspect of your team that you want to make sure is strong, tough, and resilient. However, if you put all of your effort on defense, you can never win the game.
Never.
Because if you don't score a goal or score a point, you are not going to win. So there comes a point where you need to start your offensive approach to things. And that's kind of where we are right now. We've learned what the defensive play is. The defensive play is physical distancing, limiting your exposure to other people, making sure you wash your hands, making sure you don't touch your face with your hands, making sure that you sanitize if you cannot wash your hands with soap. We've understood. That's our defensive approach right now.
Zoom calls, Zoom meetings.
That's Zoom meetings. This is all our defense, to stay away from one another, but to socially interact. I hated when they came out with social distancing. I said, that's the worst thing you could ever say. It's not social.
You the curve on that. Good job. Yeah, good one.
We want to be socially connected, not socially disconnected. But we now have to start. We understand our defense. The coach has given us the defensive approach. Now what we have to do is we have to start learning, understanding, or developing that offensive game. How do we get the economic realities of the day back in the swing? How do we do things differently so that we can generate revenue? Because let me tell you, maybe as much as individuals are being hurt from a prosperity perspective, the government is doling out hundreds of billions of dollars and getting absolutely nothing coming in. So they need revenue as well. And that's what we have to do now. And I think it's smart. And I think the smart game is, and Cliff, you coach soccer, you play soccer. Hey, you got to understand, first of all, you got to figure out how you're going to stop the ball from getting into the goal. But at some point, you can't put all of your effort there. You then got to figure out, how am I going to get the ball into their goal? And that's where I think we are now. We understand the defense. We now have to develop and understand that offense.
I think that's unbelievable. You nailed it with soccer. It helps me put that in perspective. Yeah, and I know this is a very serious matter, but it's okay to have the odd joke. Yeah, so I did play soccer and coached, and unfortunately, I can use that. We used to promote D wins games, and reality is we would win games after we scored one goal. And we had this whole thing where I was a forward and I scored goals, and that's all I did. They'd be upset at me. All the defense, they didn't like me. And they would say, your socks never get dirty, and here we are scrambling in the back, and you score a goal and you're the hero. Forwards always got all the credit, by the way, and I think mids and D should be, they're so underrated, and I think there's much better players than I was, and I was just scoring goals. But we'd score 1-0, and we would always say, we have one goal, we're winning the game. We'd go back into D. But on that note here, I think most of us went D. I went D as a company and colleagues. I reached out to all my networks and mentors. And we have another mastermind group tomorrow. I think one's on a call here today, and we meet. There's a couple groups I've involved, and that helps me tremendously. So if I can share anything, and I'm so glad that people joined. And today's not scripted. We weren't okay enough to know, but everyone else has been helping me. So what I did as my D, just to share, I went into D mode as finance, and I dove in and planned the next 6 months. What worst case scenario? We have a worst case, a better, and a best case scenario mapped out. We spent 2 weeks, and that was the reality cap. And then we threw on the innovation cap. So yes, we worked more than ever because we had to deal with reality. We went into D mode, and then we went into innovation mode and respecting all the public health guidelines. So I think most of colleagues and friends in our company, I got to hand it to everyone because we did our part and helped colleagues and workers, everyone, while we're going through this battle that we never have. So anyway, so great analogy with soccer. We have to go on offense, and I think we have to respect that. And I think maybe it's a 1-0. It's not 15 or 20, and we're not going to pound on a team that just showed up to the A-League, and you got to respect that. So I think so good on you. On that, though, we're going to get to the back half. There's some questions. I want you to open up and get into, but before you do that, get into some of the programs, because you're up to date more than I am, and I appreciate everything you do. But just I was on a call yesterday or a session and learned quite a bit. And the one hacking the next generation through any pandemic, cash. So COVID, C for cash, O for outgoing. What's outgoing? V for variables versus fixed cost. So V, I for income, so you're incoming, and D, decisive. So that was kind of a neat acronym I got from COVID. So I think you have to do that with your business today. So let's get into programs, the latest. I think that we can help the audience and share. And then I'll get into, some people are asking about investing in real estate or, building wealth or what the market looks like. And I'll try to answer some of those questions. But talk about some of the programs out there.
Well, what's really interesting about the government programs is you have to understand, government was never built to work in speed. In fact, it was built to be opposite. It was built to be slow, methodical, planning. They plan to death, they meet to death. Before anything can happen, it's got to go through the washing machine several times. This is different. And I think from a political perspective, the politicians are all saying, here we go. Justin Trudeau made the statement, we're going to get you the help you need when you need it. Well, we needed it last week and it hasn't been released yet. So, but, from his perspective, he wants it out the door right away. From the bureaucratic perspective, oh, wait a minute, we got to cross a whole bunch of T's and dot a few I's. Here's where we are. We have, of course, EI is inundated. And as I suspected in the very beginning, I advised my contacts in Ottawa. I said, you're going to have, 1 million or 2 million people in the first couple of weeks apply for unemployment insurance. At the best of times, in normal circumstances, you're 3 to 4 weeks before you can even process an application, before money starts to flow. And that's in an exceptionally good case. So with this volume, you're going to have way, way more. Why don't you forget about EI? Just have people have a simple form. apply for it. Let them fall off of EI if they have to fall off of EI. If they're displaced as a result of this in one manner or another, figure it out. So they came out with the $2,000, I think it's called the Canada CREB or something.
CREB or CERB, but I think it's CREB.
It's so basically all you have to do from April the 6th on, which is today. You can go on to the Government of Canada website, canada.ca, I think, /coronavirus. You'll see all of the programs listed there, and you can apply. If you're an independent business person, you can apply. I think it's $2,000 a month. It's not a home run. It's a couple $1,000 a month. If you're an unemployed person, if you just got displaced, laid off, whatever the case may be, you can apply for that equally as well. Now, from a business perspective, this was the challenge. Originally, they came out with a 10% for wage subsidy. Well, clearly, we went back to them and said 10% is, some of these companies are down 50, 60, 80%, maybe 100%. 10% backstop. Nobody's keeping anybody if they're only going to get 10% support. So we sent them a letter, the 4 business organizations in the region of Waterloo. It got right to the Prime Minister a few days ahead of his announcement on March the 27th. And he came out and he said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to provide employers with 75% of their employees' wages, up to a maximum of $847 a week. If their revenues are lower than 30% reduced. So 30% or lower, you can get a wage subsidy from the federal government. Problem is, you can't apply for that just yet. There's a whole lot of data that has to be driven. A website, an application form has to be put up. They're saying now, originally they said 6 weeks. It's going to be 3 weeks. So that's what the minister is hoping for. You can go on and apply for that in 3 weeks. It's going to be like 2 or 3 questions. So it's not going to be like a full audit. It's not going to be this long, cumbersome thing. And then within 3 to 5 days after applying for it, the funds will start to flow directly into your account if you're connected with CRA. So the intent of this is hoping that employers that have that maybe have remote workers are keeping them on the payroll, maybe saying, hey, we could, our volume's down by 30%, we probably could lay some people off. But rather than do that, keep them on and try and pay them their whole salary. And you're going to be backstopped to the tune of 75% from the federal government. Again, up to $847 a week. It does not preclude an individual from saying, look, I'll keep them on my payroll, but I got to lay them off, and I'm only going to pay them the 75% I'm getting back. You can do that. You need to show intent, though, that you're trying to keep employees full-time employed. You're trying to keep them fully on the payroll. So some businesses that have only bricks and mortars, they just shut right down. There's not much they can do. But I think what the federal government is trying to do here is to say, we don't want millions of people applying for EI because we know it's going to be months before we can get the money. We already have an unemployment insurance system built in. It's called Every Business's Payroll. And we can continue as an organization or as a business, continue to pay these people if we're getting the money from the government. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense. What doesn't make sense is running it through CRA. But that's the only mechanism that kind of gets in the way. Everybody knows what CRA is like. They're wonderful people if you have a good audit. They're not wonderful people if you have a bad audit. However, they're very keenly interested in making sure they cross all the T's and dot the I's. So I think there's going to be way more flexibility with this than what has been kind of read in the newspaper. Some of the commentary coming out of them, we're going to go after you. They're not going to go after you if you made a mistake. They're going to go after you if you deliberately try and cheat the system. There's no doubt about that. But you know what? They're keeping the form simple. 2 or 3 questions is not it's just, that's just not going to be there in a problem. The other thing is, you know, some companies are saying, well, 3 weeks is going to be a long time. I have to pull money out of my own bank account to support my payroll. That puts me in a precarious situation or a scary situation. Well, you can go to the bank today, starting today, your own bank that you deal with your business, and you can borrow up to $40,000 that is guaranteed by the federal government. So your bank really isn't going to look at you and say, no, I'm not giving you money because you don't have $40,000 in cash. This is backstopped, guaranteed by the federal government. The bank is not going to lose a nickel of the $40,000. It's interest-free for 1 year. And if it goes beyond a year, it's set at 5% interest. So not bad, really, money. For most businesses that want to borrow, right? That's pretty decent money. The other thing is if you pay it off by December 2022, the federal government will forgive $10,000 of it. So, you know, this is ending up to be a $30,000 loan to bridge you that you get for nothing.
So
and if you're utilizing it to bridge your payroll, you know, you're going to get it back anyway because your payroll recovery is going to come in, and you're still going to have the outstanding loan. But my suggestion would be to pay it off quickly so that you ensure yourself you're going to get that $10,000 forgiven part. The other thing is BDC for those companies that are bigger than, you have to have a payroll, by the way, of between $50,000 and $1 million to qualify for that $40,000 loan. If your needs are bigger than the $40,000, you could go to BDC. BDC they're going crazy. However, they've been given exceptional circumstances to go above and beyond, all guaranteed by the government as well. So there is a little bit more criteria that you have to follow if you need more than that. But let me tell you, I don't think I've ever seen a more fluid reaction in my life to anything than what this government is doing now. I can criticize them all day long for being able to deliver the program, because unfortunately, I think up until now, not a nickel has flowed out of the federal government. But that is not the fault of those who are trying to react quickly. That is not Justin Trudeau's fault. It's not Bill Morneau's fault. It's just the animal of government. I told you when I started, government was not built to go very quickly. In fact, it was built to do exactly the opposite. Yep. So now what they're trying to do is not only get money out the door, but they're trying to re-architecture the entire ability for government to be able to react. So these things are in place, and there are backstops all over the place to help bridge through this. They're not significant, but the reality
it adds up.
Today is this is unbelievable. This is not something anybody, you know, I can remember having a meeting 4 weeks ago and not even talking about COVID-19. You know, not maybe hearing it on the news a little bit about what was going on in China, but ever think that it would ever get to this. And this is 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Not in a million years would we have planned a shutdown or have this conversation. Not in a million years. So
we had
no
a
expert
Young Professionals event the beginning of March out at Four Fathers Brewery in Hespeler. And there was a whole bunch. There was about 50 young professionals there. And I said, well, what do you guys think? Well, you know, it's going to go away. We're going to be fine. A week later, we're in lockdown. We're shutting things down. We're, you know, and unfortunately, you know, Justin Trudeau's not a scientist. Doug Ford's not a scientist. They have to rely on scientific data that comes in. The science always adds a cautionary measurement to it. So they overreact. And what we asked them, Waterloo Region Economic Development Corporation, KW Chamber of Commerce, Communitech, and the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, what we said to the government was this: overreact, go big, and act fast. And those were the three pieces of the formula that made up. And then we gave them 6 different things that they can implement to help business. And they adopted all 6 of those pieces. And they even adopted the mantra of overreact, go big, and act fast.
Quick.
Problem is, we got to get the bureaucracy on side with that.
Yeah, you know what? We can't. I mean, maybe our audience, they're not aware of what you've done and your peers. So I can't thank you enough. You're acting quick, and these programs add up. And there's some good ones, and ones that I'm glad that 75. We're also looking into that, and now it's 3 weeks. So I learned that, and we're going to dig more. I'll get into some real estate. I think there's some questions on real estate. So thanks again, Greg, and we'll end up where they can find most of this info. Investing in the future and advise on the best way to finance, maximize future investment, and how to raise capital in real estate deals. So I'll get into, I've been asked, is this going to affect the market? Where are we at? I think we're, again, fortunate to be in this region. If we do see, we've seen a 10% increase year in, year out for a very long time, maybe average of 7 or 8% in the last 3 to 5 years. In some years, a spike of 10 or 15. So it's okay to see a flat market. It's okay to see an adjustment. I think the very first 2 months, it was a seller's market. It was multiple offers. We all know that. And I think the buyers that are out shopping today virtually, they may get a head start and they're not in multiple offers. So we had a transaction done over the weekend on a townhouse, all virtual. No one was in the property, and they viewed it, and they had an offer over the weekend, and the seller accepted the offer. So there's multiple transactions still going, and there's a benefit to that. So I don't think there's going to be a massive. I think we're going to be in that U. I think 5-10% in our area at 500,000 average price point might be 550,000, and that's not a big adjustment, and that's a big number, 10%. So I don't think we're going to see anything dramatic there. And your townhouse that was 500, is it worth 550? No, it might be still 5, and that's okay. So I don't think we're going to see any dramatic adjustment in pricing. And investing in real estate, I've always talked about this very, very early when I started running seminars, and all our clients that have worked with us. And I want to thank anyone that's come out and worked with us and trust us. We've always promoted investing in real estate was a recession-proof product. So I'll use this example. You buy a condo or townhouse for $350. The value 5-10 years later declines by 10-15%. You're only using 20% of your money purchasing something at 80% loan to value. So again, $350, you're using 20% of your money. 20 years later, someone's paid that off. So you're building wealth, and you're not really cool, but that's not the market to be in. And we've never promoted the flips. So anyway, all you investors, buy and hold. That's been our big model. Buy and hold, and wait 5, 10, 15 years when someone's paid down debt. Don't work and live off of the appreciation value. Work on debt pay down, and someone's going to pay off that mortgage. In this market, more tenants are going to be lining up. Not everyone's going to be buying, so you're going to have quality tenants more than ever in the next 5 years. So I think it's a really good time for investors to be ready and look at investing in real estate. So I think that answers the question. And let me just get into another question here. I think someone just sent me a text. Chelsea, you've been great. You've been quiet. I've been quiet, which I talk a lot. Greg dominated 45 minutes. Chelsea, is there any questions? Is there anything else? Greg, do you want to ask anything? Let me get into this real quick here.
There are no other questions in the chat right now.
No other questions. So I would say great information. Greg, where can we, and if there's any Q&A or questions, throw it out. We'll try to answer. Greg, where can our audience or anyone find this info you've talked about without bombarding you? Where can we get the answers? Because we've never gone through this. What's the best channel going forward? Myself as an owner or a colleague, employees, we're trying to keep a dialogue open, and we don't know. Where can we go?
You can go to cambridgechamber.com. You can go to any government website, and you can find your way through it. But if you go to cambridgechamber.com, right at the top it says COVID-19, and you click on that, and it takes you to a page and all kinds of resources on there that are available for individuals who are we're trying to keep that updated with the latest information we possibly can. The other thing is you can email me or call me. My email is greg@cambridgechamber.com. That's GREG @cambridgechamber.com. Or you can give me a call at any time. If I'm on the phone, I'll call you back. If I'm not here, I'll get the message eventually. It's 519-622-6543 is my direct line. So, if there's any questions, even if you've got complaints, I had a complaint last night from one of our members who was concerned that there was a particular business that he didn't think should be open and he got forced to close. So, I made a few calls to provincial contacts that I have, and it'll be looked into. I think, he brought up a really good point. We want to make sure that there's parity in the playing field. If you folks are working from home and remotely, then everybody in your marketplace should be doing exactly the same thing. And so we want to make sure, if there's if all ice cream shops are shut down, then that's fine. If one of them wants to stay open, that's not fine. So I think we just want to make sure that everybody's doing what they can, because the faster we flatten that curve, the faster we can start to move to that new normal, whatever that happens to be.
There's a question, and then I'm going to throw an idea by you. Question was, I think, Chelsea, do you want to read it out? I'm trying to get back to the chat. Here it is. Is it a good time to invest in real estate this spring, or wait? Will summer supposedly be better? Great question. So here's the angle. You're not competing right now. Do I want you running out, going through viewings and properties? No. Respect the process. Most agents have, by the way, the local Cambridge and KW board, I think most anyone across North America, all real estate brokers and agents have done a phenomenal job to adapt and work together and have the I don't know moment and get on a phone and work together. So great job, all of you. But as an investor, about a month ago, you were competing every single time there's a townhouse that hit the market. So I would watch out for some townhouses and condos that are in that price range and maybe jump on it. And the reason being is you're calling us in 10 or 15 years. Buy and hold. Don't call to flip. That flip game is very sensitive, and that's not my game. And some people have done very well. So buy and hold. So I would say it's okay to buy now. In the summer, if we're coming off of the U, we don't know if it's summer or fall. When we're coming up in that U, there's going to be way more inventory or less inventory maybe, and it could be a seller's market, and then you're in the multiple bids. So that would be my answer. So there's never a wrong time to buy real estate property.
Never.
As long as you're holding for 10, 15 years. 7 to 15 years would be that golden time frame. So, Chelsea, is there any other questions?
There's another question
How long do you think the variable rate will – go ahead.
How long do you think the variable rate will stay at these levels? And do you think inflation will affect the market?
That's a great question. I'd have to say the first part of that question, we may consider bringing a mortgage. Actually, if there's some people are kind of shy of asking questions. So I'll say going forward, if there's any questions, you want to go directly to regorealty.ca and maybe email. Chelsea, do you want to throw out an email address that anyone can ask any questions if they don't want to do that here? What's the best website or email address? You're unmuting yourself.
I just put the info at Rego Realty email in the chat. You
did. So info at Rego Realty, it's in the chat. Ask any questions personally, we can get back to you. Back to the question, variable rates. I'm going to try to bring a mortgage broker or even a lawyer and an inspector, maybe a couple experts in the industry, what you should do during these times. I think the variable rate might stay longer based on my network. And inflation, will it affect the market? Well, it's too early to say. I can't answer that. I think Greg touched up on it. How far down will that affect us? It may be a couple of years. It may be, the next generation. I think the inflation could be, a good and bad thing for investors. So time will tell. I don't think anyone of us will be prepared and can give you that right answer. I sure can. I'm not. Never gone through this, so but I can maybe do some digging and bring some experts on that.
We have another question. The
Go
question
ahead.
is, Is there less inventory at the moment than usually at this time of year?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't done that stat. I've been in a different mode lately, but I can get back to you on that. We can definitely search the market, the inventory. I would say there's quite a bit of inventory coming through the market up until maybe mid of last week. There was 20, 30 listings hitting the board every day, both real estate, Cambridge and Kitchener. I do think we've seen a slowdown for sure.
We have another question here. Should sellers hold off for now? Homes in the 800,000 price range?
I think if you're going to hold off at any, like, I would go, I'd have to, go deeper on the question. I'd need to know more on the situation. It's case by case. It all depends on your situation. I would say if you're not in a rush and you don't need to sell, you may want to just be patient. But I would definitely say one thing, everyone: prep, get ready, prepare, do some virtual staging, virtual walkthroughs with your agents, tips on getting your home ready so that when that U-shape, you're ready and you're ahead of the curve. So definitely, again, stay active and network with your agents. And that price point's still strong. If you do a great job virtually in the photos and your property shows really well, every buyer that was shopping for that 800,000 or 7 and 900,000, there's very little inventory in that. And if it's well presented, someone might really look at that and during these times virtually and just do one showing versus 5 or 6 showings. So I'd need to know more of the situation. Might be an okay time, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's suggested if you're just trying the market and you're not necessarily in the mode or the display. Answer that. I think we've got 1 minute. Right now, I think what is the biggest draw price that we can expect during this current situation? Are we facing 10 of? Honestly, that's a great question as well. I just found that within the last minute. I don't know if anyone can answer 10 or 15% drop or 1 or 2%. I'm not feeling that. My gut's telling me we're all going to come out together. It's going to be a dip now, very slow. I think we'll have less transactions than a massive dip in price. That's my take. Less transactions this year than a dip. I think we're in a really, really good province, country, and city. The entire Waterloo region. Greg talked about creative capital, I think Scott Higgins might be here. He created Creative Capital of Canada. If you haven't been on the website, check that out. We are such a very unique and fortunate group, city to be in. So many smart individuals that are so creative, startups. I'm trying to rush that answer so I can wrap up at 2 and respect your time. So I don't know if this region is going to see that with the LRT, 40, 50 minutes away from Toronto. Everyone still wants to buy a piece of real estate in Toronto. And if Toronto's selling for the average price point of 1.5, I don't think we're going to see anyone scared to come out to the Waterloo region. So I don't think we'll see that. I think we're going to be okay overall. But I think more important is obviously the flattening the curve. Greg, are you still there? Again, I want to thank Greg. This is kind of my first, so I hope you guys got some value out of this. Greg checked out already. Once he doesn't have the panel, he's out. I want to thank him. Oh, there he is. I just said, let's do it. We weren't scripted. So I hope we brought value to the audience. And anyway, on a fun note, what are you doing at home with Lisa and the kids? They must be like, get you out of the house. Are they fed up? What are you guys doing?
No, because I come into the office every day, so our marriage is still okay.
I'm at home every day, and I have to say this. My wife says, I've never seen you work so much all day. Are you not sick and tired of talking? I said, no, I guess. My throat, the odd time after is sore. But reality is I'm enjoying this because I find it's way more efficient. And I don't have to run around. I'm not getting sucked into this meeting, that meeting. So it's been okay overall. But we've been playing Monopoly. That's our little thing. And I've been meditating. All my peers and networks out there, if that's my only give back today and someone gets the value out of this, I've learned to meditate more and more. And that's the one thing I'm throwing into my lifestyle right now, exercising, meditating. So that's been kind of our little, takeaway from all this. So Greg, thank you. I know you got to go. Yep. Thanks everyone. And we'll stay tuned and maybe do this again.
Stay safe.
Thanks, Greg. You too. Bye-bye.